Today we live in a world where almost everything runs on data. From sending a WhatsApp message to streaming Netflix, from making UPI payment to training AI models. All of it depends on one thing, data centers. Now most people never think about them. They imagine the cloud as something floating in the sky. But in reality, the cloud lives inside physical buildings. Massive high-tech facilities packed with servers, cooling system, power backups, and fiber connections. These are the factories of the digital economy. And here is why it matters for India. Globally, the US, China, and Europe dominate the industry. But India generates nearly 20% of world's data while having only about 5.5% of global data center capacity. That mismatch is why the world is suddenly looking at India as the next big data hub. Recently, I came across a report by Jefferies that says India's data center capacity is set to jump 5 times in the next 5 years. Now there is already a lot of excitement for data center related stocks, and every investor is trying to identify the next multibagger from data center theme. So in this video, I've tried to decode the data center hype in India. Since I wanted to explain the entire ecosystem and not just share stock names, this video has become much bigger. Hence, I've divided it in 2 parts. This is the first part of the video where we will discuss what is a data center. Then why are data centers so important? Next, we will cover type of data centers, and then where does India stand in the data center ecosystem. In the second part of the video, we will discuss key data center players in India. But as exciting as it sounds, there's another side of the story. Building and running data centers is not easy. It requires massive capital, uninterrupted power, reliable cooling, and flawless execution. And while the opportunity looks like a gold rush, the risks are just as big, if not bigger. Hence, in the second part, we'll also focus on key risk in the growth thesis as an investor. Alright, let's get started. Think of data centers like a digital warehouse. Instead of storing goods, it stores and processes data like your apps, videos, payments, files, AI models. Inside, there are thousands of powerful computers, that is servers, connected to high-speed internet running 24/7. These facilities are designed to never go down. They have backup power, cooling, fire safety, and strict security. Every time you use WhatsApp, watch Netflix, make a UPI payment, or run an AI app, the request goes to a data center somewhere. Now this is the typical architecture of a data center. At the core are the server rooms. This is where racks of servers and storage units are kept. Think of them as the brain of data center, where all the computing and storage happens. These rooms are enclosed to maintain cooling and security. The next is power management and backup system. Data centers cannot afford even a second of downtime, so they have multiple layers of power backup. First is your UPS batteries that kicks in instantly, and second is your diesel generators that starts within seconds and can run the entire facility. This ensures that even if the grid fails, the servers never go down. The next is cooling systems and heat exchanger. Server generates enormous heat. To keep them safe, data center uses cooling systems inside the server rooms that absorb the hot air coming from the servers. This heat is transferred into chilled water or another cooling medium. The heat exchanger then takes this hot liquid and releases the heat outside from the atmosphere. Usually, it goes through big fan or cooling tower. So basically, the heat exchanger is like the lungs of data center, constantly taking out heat so the servers can breathe easy. Then you have interconnection and meet me rooms. A data center is useless without connectivity. That's where meet me rooms comes in. All fiber optic cables, telecom networks, and connections come together here. So data flows in and out of the center efficiently. Then you have monitoring and security. Every modern DC has a central control station equipped with data center infrastructure management system. From here, staff can monitor power, cooling, fire safety, and security on giant dashboards. Plus, there is a heavy physical security that includes biometric access, cameras, guards, because protecting data is as important as protecting gold. So when you picture a data center, don't just imagine a warehouse full of computers. It's actually a highly engineered ecosystem with power, cooling, connectivity, fire safety, security, all working together to make sure your apps, payments, and videos never stops. Now I know that for a person with a job or business, it's very difficult to do such deep dive into emerging sectors and opportunities. That's where I try to add value in my exclusive community of long-term investors, where I share one exclusive video every week that includes more than 200 companies I track closely, along with identifying investment opportunities. Again, it is not a buy or sell call, but my endeavor is to try to help you build the right thought process and invest with required information. For more detail, you can explore my website or join button of this channel. Now, next big question is, why are data centers so important? Let's discuss it. Think about your daily life. You send a WhatsApp message, pay with UPI, binge a Netflix series, or maybe ask ChatGPT a question. Behind the scenes, every single one of these actions is processed inside a data center. That's why data centers are often called the backbone of the digital economy. Without them, modern life simply stops. Let's take some case studies. So first is your banking and payment. Every credit card swipe, UPI transaction, or stock trade flows through data center before it is confirmed. Second, let's take entertainment. Streaming platforms like YouTube, Netflix, Hotstar, it stores petabyte of content inside data center, delivering it to you instantly. Third, let's take e-commerce. Amazon, Flipkart, Nykaa, their entire business runs on data centers managing order, payment, and logistics. Next, you have government and public services. Aadhaar authentication, DigiLocker, GST filing, all of it sits on servers in Indian data center. And then, of course, you have artificial intelligence. Training an AI model requires thousands of GPUs working in sync, and that only happens in AI-ready data centers. In short, data centers are not just warehouses of computers. They are the digital factories where our economy is processed in real time. And as India goes more digital every year, the importance of data center will only multiply. From startups to global tech giants, every business today is dependent on them. Now let's look at the type of data centers. Please note that not all data centers are same. Depending on who uses them and what they are designed for, there are different types. Let me break them down in simple terms. So first is enterprise or captive data centers. These are built and run by companies for their own use only. For example, a bank might build its own data center to securely store all customer record and transaction. The advantage is full control over security and operations. But the disadvantage is it's expensive and not every company can afford to do this. Then second category is your co-location data center. Here the operator builds a massive facility with power, cooling, connectivity, and then rent out racks or space to many companies. Think of it like a co-working space but for servers. Instead of every company building its own data center, they just rent space. This is very popular in India because it lowers cost and increases efficiency. Then third is your hyperscale data centers. These are the giants. They are built specially for cloud companies like Amazon AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, and Meta. A single hyperscale data center can be size of multiple football fields with hundreds of thousands of servers. They are designed to scale up quickly to handle massive workload, from cloud storage to AI. Then fourth is your edge data center. Now, as apps like your gaming, 5G, IoT grows, we need lower latency, meaning faster response time. That's where edge data center comes in. They're smaller, distributed facility located closer to user. For example, instead of processing your gaming request in a Mumbai server, an edge data center in your city can do it instantly. And finally, the newest category, AI data centers. Training artificial intelligence model is very different from running regular apps. It needs GPU, high density racks, and much more power per server. These AI-ready facilities are now being built by both hyperscaler and Indian operators, and they will be the fastest growing category in the coming decade. So whether it's a bank securing its own data, a startup renting a rack in a co-location, or Amazon running its giant hyperscale campus, every type of data center has its role. And India is seeing growth in all 5 categories at once. Now let's talk about where does India stand in the data center ecosystem. Globally, the US, China, and Europe dominates the data center industry. US alone accounts for nearly 40% of world's capacity. Right now, India is a small but fast growing player. We account for just 5.5% of global capacity despite generating nearly 20% of world's data. That mismatch itself tells you why India is such a hot growing market. As of 2024, our total installed capacity is only around 1.3 gigawatt. But by 2030, analysts expect that it will rise to 5 gigawatt or more. That's nearly a 4 times jump in just 5 years. One of the fastest growth rates in the world. So the question is, what is driving this growth? Well, first factor is digital explosion. India has over 800 million internet users and per user data consumption here is among the highest in the world. Second is government push. Policies like the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, RBI's data localization rule and Digital India initiatives are forcing more data to stay inside India. Third driver is cost advantage. Building and running data center in India is cheaper than in the US or Europe with lower land, labor and even power cost. Fourth driver is strategic location. With subsea cable landing in Mumbai and Chennai, India is geographically positioned to become a regional data hub between Middle East and Southeast Asia. And fifth driver is of course AI and cloud adoption. Hyperscalers like AWS, Microsoft and Google are scaling up rapidly, while Indian giants like Reliance and Adani are investing billions into this space. Think of it this way. Just like the world sees India as the back office for IT services, it's now starting to see India as the future data hub. India is positioning itself to be the next big growth market for the decade ahead. So that brings us to the end of part 1 of our deep dive into India's data center story. We have understood what a data center really is. Not some cloud floating in the sky, but a highly engineered facility with servers, power backup, cooling and connectivity. We have also seen why they are so important for everything in our digital life, from payment to streaming to AI. We broke down the different type of data centers from enterprise, co-location, hyperscale, edge and AI ready. And finally, we looked at where India stands, small today but growing at one of the fastest rates in the world with a massive push from government policy, digital adoption and AI. But this is only half of the story because as investors, we can't stop at just understanding the opportunity. We also need to know who the key players are in India's data center ecosystem, from telecom operator and industrial giant to cooling specialist, cable maker and pure tech companies. And more importantly, we must discuss the hidden risk that nobody is talking about, which could derail the entire boom. So in part 2, we will cover the key listed companies in India's data center value chain and finally the major risk investors must understand before betting on the data center multi-bagger theme. Trust me, part 2 is where the real investment insight comes in. So make sure you don't miss it. I'll see you next video. Till then, take care.